Of course, after 12 years, yesterday was Governor Jay Inslee's last official day in office. Today, we will have a new governor, Bob Ferguson, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about Bob Ferguson because he'll be the governor for as long as he wants to be the governor. 12 years, 16 years, 20 years, governor for life? I don't know. But Jay Inslee gave, this was after our show yesterday, his parting kind of state of the state address, if you will. Jay Inslee needs to be studied in an institution. Like, he actually needs to be studied in a lab by scientists because his level of being oblivious is unlike anything I think this planet has ever seen. His ability to just, I don't even think it's lies. God, I might take it back. All this time, I don't even know if it was lies. I think he's convinced himself that these things are true and that what he says makes sense. And he's actually convinced himself that he's left Washington State in a better place than he found it. So I just have to, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And a special thank you to Nicole, and for everybody just loved Nicole today because she had to go through and listen to his entire speech so she could pull the very best bits. That's hazard pay material right there. So, of course, he's given this speech. You know, we're in a horrible position on all fronts, any front, leaving us with a $14 billion budget deficit. Here's what he had to say about Washington State's economic outlook.
The Great Recession triggered major reductions in spending and services, $11 billion in cuts, about the same amount of the budget gap we face today. Today, our economy is not in decline, unlike the Great Recession. Our economy is doing as well as it ever has. But that prosperity hasn't bloomed equally. While fortunes for some are growing, so are the lines at the food banks. Our economy provides more than enough to some, but our regressive tax system is unfair to most working families and jeopardizes our continued progress on the systems that Washingtonians depend on. My budget in December proposed $2 billion in cuts, budget cuts, but pruning significantly more than that, I would consider a slide back to those dark days. We have a strong economy. So why would we consider cuts?
Because you have a $14 billion budget deficit. There's so much in there. He says the last time we were facing a situation like this was the Great Recession. And he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that. And then he goes on to say our economy is strong. Okay, then why are we in a fiscal situation so bad it's comparable to our last recession? He doesn't understand. Our economy is so strong. You're leaving us with a $15 billion budget deficit, which only proves the point that if you're saying our economy is strong, then the only reason to be in such a profound budget deficit is you spend too much money. The last line there is insane. Again, it should be studied in a laboratory. He says, our economy is strong, so why would we make cuts? Because you're in a deficit of $14 billion. It's insane. It gets worse too, it gets worse. Of course, it wouldn't be a Jay Inslee speech unless he waxed poetic about how wonderful and welcoming and woke of a place Washington is.
Washington values make us a place of refuge and opportunity in an unstable world. The secret of our success is we don't leave anybody behind. We follow the science and we work together to make extremely difficult decisions. We are a beacon of progress by so many measures. We refuse to leave our neighbors behind.
Yeah, in Washington, of course we refuse. We don't leave anybody behind in Washington. We refuse to leave our neighbors behind. Nicole, can you play that cut for me just one more time so it can really sink in for folks the message he's delivering there?
Washington values make us a place of refuge and opportunity in an unstable world. And we inspire a nation. The secret of our success is we don't leave anybody behind. We follow the science and we work together to make extremely difficult decisions. We are a beacon of progress by so many measures because we follow the science. We work together. We refuse to leave our neighbors behind.
We refuse to leave our neighbors behind. Refuse to leave our neighbors behind. Yeah, not, ignore the record number of homeless on our streets and the drug addicted and all the science we follow with that. We refuse to leave our neighbors behind. We don't leave them behind. We just leave them suffering on the streets with needles in their arm. That's it. No big deal. Oh my God, this guy's unhinged. And then actually there was a little bit of news out of this event. So he, of course, can't leave without taking a shot at Donald Trump. And actually some Republicans left the room when he delivered this line right here.
Our state will work with anyone on policies that are positive for Washington, but we will not bend the knee to a would-be authoritarian's worst impulses. We will follow the Constitution. We will follow the Constitution, and we will be steadfast in our commitment to the progress of our state together.
Yeah, would-be authoritarian's worst impulses. What does that even mean, by the way? Would-be authoritarian. Like, he's the president. He was the president once before. Would-be authoritarian? So, like, what if only, what conditions would have to exist for him to be an authoritarian? If he wanted to be an authoritarian, then he certainly is in a position to be able to do that, and was in a position to be able to do that 4 years ago, but didn't. So it's just insane. I mean, this guy's unhinged. From a guy who got 1% in the polling when he ran to be president of the United States, will work with anyone except Donald Trump. Well, that kind of sucks for Washington, because Donald Trump's going to be the president for the next 4 years. So I sure hope that your predecessor can find a way, or your successor rather, can find a way to work with him. But there were a few Republicans who walked out. I know Representative Jim Walsh walked out, and Representative Chris Corey walked out when he delivered that line. Here's what Rep. Corey said on X. Yes, I walked out. I wasn't going to listen to the man who was the last to give up emergency powers in the nation and fought any legislative checks on his power, make false inflammatory claims about our incoming president. Good for them. Good for them, honestly, and you don't owe him anything. He's on his way out the door. I'm sure there are a million other speeches and times that they would have loved to walk out of the room, but he was still the governor. But now he has no power or control over them, and so he can walk out into insignificance and make 7 figures off his climate grift. But yeah, I mean, of course, he has to take a parting shot on Donald Trump on his way out the door, as if Donald Trump is to blame for all of the issues facing Washington state. So I will try very hard not to bring up Jay Inslee anymore. There's just one other little thing. One other little thing. So he tweets yesterday. There was this Supreme Court case involving RFK Jr. And an appeal over COVID misinformation investigations, and the Supreme Court rejected it. Here is Governor Inslee's tweet about it. Gosh, brace yourselves. Medical misinformation is deadly. SCOTUS has made clear that states like Washington have the right to hold accountable doctors who engage in this practice. RFK Jr.'s war on sound medical advice won't inhibit our ability to protect patients. Yeah, what sound medical advice is that? Jay Inslee, what do you consider to be sound medical advice? 975 days of emergency rule during a pandemic that needed maybe 60 days? Telling people that they had to wear masks when they were dining 2 feet away from people and sit down wearing their masks, so they weren't allowed to come in, but then they could take their masks off for the entirety of the time that they were eating dinner, and that was sound medical advice? Firing people over a vaccine that you claimed would be the end of COVID when it really wasn't, you not changing your mind, is that sound medical advice? Like, can you give me some more examples of you having sound medical advice for the people of Washington state, yet you want to go after RFK Jr., who's not the governor of any state, he's not going to be the president, he might be part of Trump's administration. It's just insane stuff. Again, he needs to be studied in a laboratory. He needs to be studied in a laboratory for how someone can be just so utterly dumb. I hate to say that, but just absolutely no sense of self-awareness whatsoever. So anyway, hopefully we can move away from Governor Jay Inslee a little bit now that he's out of office and focus on Governor Bob Ferguson.